We'll now reconvene the public session. John, any reportable action?
No, the City Council discussed the matters listed on the agenda, and there are no reportable actions, although should indicate that this closed session actually will be recessed and continued until after the regular meeting adjourned.
Thank you. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, led by me. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's remain standing. Pastor Britton Bowman, Community Church of Norco. Okay. Berwin, would you do the honors? The mic is hot.
Please bow your head. Lord, thank thee for all the blessings, and thank thee for the new council, and that watch and make sure that they do everything right, and keep everybody healthy, away from the virus and everything, and ask these things in thy name. Amen.
Before we continue, I want to thank Kelly and Lacey. Thank you guys for stepping in and filling in for our city clerk. I noticed you guys are working very hard. Thank you. We will now have the election of the mayor. We're open for motions. Can we have a vote, Kelly?
Councilmember Alleman? Yes. Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Councilmember Hoffman? Yes. Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bash?
Yes. I'm very honored. Thank you very,
Passes.
very much. I really appreciate it. I will try to do my very best. I will open Mayor Pro Tem nominating Greg Newton.
Second.
A vote?
Councilmember Alleman? Councilmember Grunmeyer? Yes. Councilmember Hoffman? Councilmember Newton? Yes. Mayor Bash?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Great. Anything, Greg? You good? He's good. All right. Right now we're going to have a presentation, Santa Ana River Mainstream Project, Prado Dam Spillway, Orange County Flood Control. Where's our gentlemen? Are they outside still? Hi, guys. Hi. Welcome. Do you guys live in Orange County?
We do.
Did you pay the toll?
I did. Yes.
There you go. Good.
We're
Welcome to Norco. Where's your cowboy hat?
I left it back at the office. I actually do have a cowboy hard hat that I know.
Well, next time bring your cowboy hard hat.
I will. I seriously considered it. Well, thank you. Appreciate Mayor and council members for the opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is James Tyler. I'm with Orange County Public Works. I have Joe Nguyen, my colleague here, who's joined me in case there's any hard questions that I can't answer, but I'll attempt to give a general overview of the Santa Ana River Main Stem project. Specifically, we'll delve into the Prado Dam project, which affects City of Norco, and then answer any questions that council might have or any other members that might have. So got this. So to advance this slide, just probably the one that's all worn out. Yeah, okay. Very good. Thank you.
Just so people know, the light bulb burnt out in the other one, so you have to look at the screen.
Very good. So this is a general overview of the Santa Ana River Main Stem project. The Santa Ana River Main Stem project encompasses the Santa Ana River watershed. The Santa Ana River was considered the greatest flood threat west of the Mississippi before this project got started by the Army Corps. It encompasses several different features that are shown here on this map, starting all the way up in the headwaters at Seven Oaks Dam near Big Bear, going downstream to Prado Dam, which is again the thing we'll talk about most in this meeting, and then downstream of Prado Dam is considered the lower Santa Ana River. And then there are other features that are relative to other flood control districts. This project is a cooperative project between Orange County Flood Control District, Riverside County, Water Conservation Flood Control District and San Bernardino County Flood Control District and the Army Corps of Engineers. It's a $2.8 billion project, a flood control project. So we're basically providing flood protection for all the citizens along that river all the way from the headwaters to the Pacific Ocean. So there's other statistics there you can see, but that's generally what the project's about. The three elements that the Orange County Flood Control District's involved in are the Seven Oaks Dam, which I mentioned before. It's the highest earthen flood control dam, I believe, in the United States. It was completed element. There's the cost there, $522 million. Prado Dam is the project that we're implementing right now. It's listed there are some items that are completed towards the project. Most of the dam itself has been raised 28.4 feet. They have not raised the spillway, which is the reason why we're acquiring property, which we'll get into, behind the basin. And but there are other elements. There's dikes and things like that have been constructed already. So there's some listings of those items. And then the lower Santa Ana River, which is again downstream of Prado Dam, primarily in Orange County. That work is almost entirely complete. There's a few areas just downstream of the dam. There's some active construction projects. So the main areas Orange County is working on that still have work to be done is the lower Santa Ana River and Prado Dam. This is just a very high-level schedule of what's remaining for Prado Dam. So again, that was one of the three elements we talked about. And this is federal fiscal year, which is based on November 1st through October 31st. So their years don't normally coincide with a normal fiscal year, like for us is June to July. You'll see there that basically fiscal year 21, there's 4 projects that are scheduled to go to be awarded by the Army Corps, and these schedules can slip, but this is what they have currently on their schedule. One is Norco Bluff Stabilization, which is a project we've been working with members of the city on, and that's in a design phase right now, getting ready for construction award. River Road Dike, which is along River Road. Alcoa Dike, there's a portion that's already been constructed, and there's another phase that has to be constructed, and then the spillway raise is the main element of the Prado Dam project that will be scheduled to be awarded next fiscal year. So the next slide I have talks about the acquisition. So as Orange County Flood Control District is the only local sponsor for the Prado Dam project, I mentioned 2 other local sponsors, which is Riverside County and San Bernardino County. But Prado Dam was uniquely basically between Army Corps of Engineers and Orange County Flood Control District, so you only have to deal with us on this one. But this map is an aerial, obviously a high-level map of the Prado Dam Basin. The Prado Dam project basically raises the elevation that would be flooded behind the dam itself from 556 to 566 elevation. So those are the elevations that we utilize when we are acquiring property. And so basically the distance between 556 and 566, again, that's the elevation, whatever that projects out into through the basin, that was a task for the Orange County Flood Control District to acquire those properties. So you can see there's a number of properties, and again, I know it's a very far away map, so you can't get much detail in it, but this map shows some of the areas where we've already acquired real estate. Those are in orange, and then essentially for the city of Norco, there's smaller acquisitions that are required, and I believe a lot of the offers have already been put out to folks in the city of Norco. Primarily what we're seeking in the city of Norco are flowage easements as opposed to like fee acquisitions where we're acquiring an entire property. So a flowage easement is similar to other easements that you might be familiar with, like an easement for Edison or a utility easement. It doesn't prevent anyone from using the land. It limits what they can do, but it doesn't prevent them from still owning the land and utilizing it. But it does put some restrictions, and it makes them aware of the fact that that area will be flooded. The design event for this project is a 190-year event. So you may be familiar with a 100-year storm. This particular project is built to a higher standard, which is a 190-year event, which is the probability of a storm of that magnitude occurring once every 190 years, but it could happen any year. And so that's why we have to get those easements with the understanding that it might flood at any time, but the likelihood of that flooding occurring is very remote and infrequent. I think that was it, just as a general overview of what's going on now. I don't know if there's any questions, or I could talk more about.
Does somebody have any questions? Ted?
Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
The River Road Dike, you mentioned on your project,
Yes.
is that to protect the River Road Bridge or River Road?
So that,
Because I know
Yeah.
the bridge itself is below that 566.
right, and I believe they did some improvements on the bridge not too long ago, right, where they.
Yeah, brand new bridge.
Right, it's a brand new bridge. That's a good question. So the River Road, it's referred to as River Road Dike, but it's actually offset from the River Road Dike, and there's basically residential properties off, I guess, to the northeast. There's some developments there. That's primarily what the area is protecting, not the road itself.
So where the RICWA plant is, a wastewater plant, the plant itself is above 566.
Right.
But our outlets into that, which, because it's a JPA that we own, how does that do? Is that going to affect that?
So I know that, so the Army Corps of Engineers is the one that actually does all the design and construction of these projects. The local sponsor, which is Orange County, is responsible for acquiring the real estate. And so I'm sure that they should be looking at those things as far as any impacts. I know there are instances where they install flap gates or something like that to prevent stuff from flowing back up, storm drains and things like that. So we'd have to look at that specific example.
Because that's our outlet for the plant. So,
Got it.
And then the Alcoa, is that Corona?
Yes.
And that's by the airport there, or the Butterfield and all
We've
that?
already seen some of the
Yeah, I've seen
construction
that,
going
yeah.
on there. They constructed basically half of the project. There's some Edison relocations and things that were required that delayed in basically awarding the entire contract. So they're going to be awarding that fairly soon, and they'll be able to construct the remaining portion of that.
So, and because we have infrastructure there at River Road and Bluff on our side that is below that 566 there for our recycle water and that area, our signals and stuff like that, is that relocated, or how does that all play out?
So it depends on the connectivity to the basin. So there could be areas that are below 566, but as long as there's areas above 566 surrounding it, then that area wouldn't necessarily get flooded. And so I'm not sure the specific.
No, it's the bridge.
Okay.
The bridge is below that, and,
Yes.
and our recycle water lines and all the tubes that go into that bridge
Okay.
are all part of our infrastructure that goes into that.
Understood. Yeah. So we are working with the city. We have a separate group of mine that's helping with utility, looking at all the utilities that would be affected by the same raising of Prado Dam and the spillway. And so I know we are working with the city. I think there's some manhole covers and things that were identified that need to be hardened, and so we're doing that analysis, and we're rectifying that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Robin? Catherine?
Yes, I had a question. I know you mentioned that the easement would limit what the residents could do, and I know there was some buzz, and I kind of live near that community. So just for clarification's sake, if anyone still has questions, what sort of things would it limit, that easement limit, to what they could do with their property?
So the primary, excellent question, thank you. The primary limitation that's spelled out specifically in the easement is there can be no habitable structures. So because we don't want someone risking in one of those flood events, although that flooding that's going to occur, it's going to be very slow, and there'll be plenty of time for people to see the water rush, filling up behind the basin. It's such a huge basin. But regardless of that, the Corps has required that there can be no habitable structures because we don't want to, obviously loss of life is one of our primary concerns in flood control. And so that's one of the main components that's not allowed. There is a stipulation, I believe, in the easement that we request that if anyone were to put improvements in that area, that they would get kind of permission from the easement holder, which would be the Orange County Flood Control District, just to make sure that whatever structures proposed there won't be conflicting as far as things similar to a habitable structure.
So I have one more follow-up question. What about, if someone were to put stables or structures for animals?
So that would be considered like a compatible use. Presumably, you'd be able to, move the horses and so forth out of the way so they wouldn't get, wouldn't drown. And so that would be considered something that could be compatible with, for the flood control easement.
Greg? I just have one question. The mural in the spillway,
Yes.
what's going to happen with that?
So that I know Riverside County and is working hard on the mural and the spillway. I know the Corps. It's between I think the Army Corps and I think there's like a lawsuit involved and so forth.
I think they're going to do something with it. They
Yeah,
decide they're
I
going to
believe they
repaint it or
will,
do
yeah.
something.
I mean, it's a shame that it's in the state that it's in currently, but I believe they will. And I know that they're currently doing the design for the spillway, so the configuration of the spillway or the size of the potential mural in the future may be different, and so that maybe limits what can be put on it or whatever. But I do understand that they are going to try to integrate something with the future spillway project.
Well, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Staff? Nothing? Do we have any cards on? No, there wouldn't be a card on this. Never mind. Anything else?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to
Yeah,
speak
welcome.
to you, and we can we're working with your staff very closely, so we'll continue to do so as we progress through these projects, and we appreciate the opportunity to tell you about the project, and we'll provide updates as needed.
Great. Thank you very
Kevin,
much.
I just have one, and this case just came to my mind. On these flood easements,
Yes.
that goes in escrow, right? So every one of those properties owners has to notify, it goes in their property or selling future.
Yes, it would become part of the title, and
The title?
it would be
Okay.
it would be in the just like any other easement that might be on their property.
Just curious what it would do on a flood insurance effect on it. That's going to be,
So, yeah, thank you, Joe. Yeah, so the flood insurance typically is related to a 100-year event. It's not 190-year. You wouldn't be required to get flood insurance for 190-year. So the 100-year wouldn't get to that point.
okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you very much.
real
Yeah.
quick, just to answer Mr. Hoffman's question earlier about the infrastructure that's near the River Road Bridge, et cetera. This project only obligates Orange County and the parties involved to mitigate the issues that go from the raise, the existing elevation of 556 to 566. So the infrastructure that's already existing in the current flood zone that's allowed and permitted, like our infrastructure through the bridge and at the bottom of Bluff, is not subject to be relocated or improved in any which way. It only is the difference of 10 feet. Any infrastructure in that 10 feet is what they're going to be addressing and correcting to basically make it to handle a flood. So it's just that 10 feet that they're focusing on. Anything of any entity, whether it's Corona, Norco, they're working with those agencies to make improvements or mitigations to that infrastructure only in that zone.
Thank you, Chad. I've only seen that bridge get washed out twice, so I don't want to see it a third time. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
You bet. We are going to be moving an item 5A, before our city council communications, because there's some people in the audience here that would like to talk about this. Can we get the lights on? Seems dark. Thank you, Matt. Oh. So what we're going to be doing is moving to 5A, review recommendation by the Parks and Recreation Commission of a community petition and application for the dedication and naming of the New Hamner Bridge, Berwyn-Hanna Bridge. This is a council discussion item. The way this will work is order presentation for discussion items, a staff report presentation, council questions of staff, public speakers in favor, against, neutral, and council discussion and action. So we will begin with your staff report, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and audience. Tonight before you is a recommendation based on a petition that was submitted to the Parks and Recreation Commission dealing with assets or infrastructure, as our policy for dedication or naming of assets requires a number of requirements by the public or petitioners to in submittal. One of those would be to obtain a minimum of 75 signatures from residents. There's some other criteria that they must write and regarding why they feel this individual should be or this person or group should be named on that particular public asset. One of the other requirements is that they are financially responsible for any plaques or costs associated to that. So this petition was submitted to the department. It was reviewed. It was then submitted to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The commission then reviewed it, and the final decision comes before the city council. And what this is to basically with the new Hamner Bridge is to, in that dedication, to name the new bridge the Berwyn-Hanna Bridge. So before you tonight, based on the recommendations, this is before you for discussion. I do believe we have some people in the audience or people who have sent in comments to the council in regards to this particular item. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Any questions? Catherine? Greg? Robin?
I have one. And do we just going to leave it Berwyn-Hanna if we do, or can we mirror Berwyn-Hanna? Is that, I'm just asking.
The asset belongs to the city, so the council can do whatever it wants to do in the naming of that asset.
It's just what my fellow council members or even Mr. Hanna, if he would like to see that change. But I just, as a matter of respect for his office held here, just my thought. Thank you.
So do we have cards?
No new cards have been received.
Do we have to hear the emails, or are we?
No,
good?
they've been posted online for public view, and there's a hard copy in front of each of you.
I'm opening public comments and I'm closing public comments. Bringing it back to council for discussion. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there is one person who was going to make public comment for everyone. Is that correct?
Well, get aboard. Come on, Norva.
Wasn't sure.
Holy cow.
Can't talk through this thing.
You're being watched
done.
now.
Good evening, council and staff, everyone, and Kelly. Wow. This is a very earned project. There were 7 women that took on this task to obtain the signatures, and it was probably the easiest project that the 7 of us ever worked on. We had people coming to us when the word got out. The biggest amazement was that Berwyn didn't find out. We swore everyone to secrecy, but we didn't think that would last, but worked well. Was not all that difficult to get the signatures. They were calling us and asking to come and do the signing. So it was really pleasing after all of the years that we've been working with this man through the different facets of his Norco life. Norco Horsemen's Association, NART, Day of the Cowboy, all of the different things that he's been involved in for the 33 years I've known him. I've lived here 34 and I've known him 33. So I knew him when I had brown hair and he had hair. You know, this is a long time coming. So he's just really personifies what a Norconian is all about. I would think it would be really great if you guys would go ahead and name it the Mayor Berwin Hanna Bridge. We didn't even think of that. That would just be an extra plus, but totally up to you guys. Hopefully you all agree with us that it's well earned. Thank you.
Thank you, Norva. Greg, any comments?
Other than Berwin, you're well deserving of the honor, and whatever, if you think you want to call it Mayor Berwin Hanna Bridge or Berwin's Bridge, or I'm open to your choice. As you know, that once we name it after you and it's city infrastructure, you will be responsible for the maintenance of that bridge. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Catherine?
No, I just want to thank former Mayor Hanna for all of his work in making that bridge a reality. I know it will be a wonderful asset for our community, and many will enjoy it, and it will be very welcome when that 190-year flood, if it happens again. Thank you.
Robin?
Very supportive of the idea of naming the bridge after Berwin, and couldn't think of a better person with all your work in transportation and with RTA and everything else. It's very fitting.
Ted?
As someone who has been your alternate on the Riverside County Transportation Commission for now almost 5 years, I can tell you he's worked very hard on that commission and pushing that bridge through in the whole project. And having it named, whether it be Berwin Hanna or Mayor Berwin Hanna's bridge, is quite a, you deserve that, and we deserve to do that for you, so I appreciate that.
So I'm going to take a little bit different tack on this. I was looking at bridges, and I don't know if you know this, but bridges are retired. They retire bridges. And what's really interesting is that bridge is actually named after John Thomas Hamner, who was a supervisor, who after he was the chief supervisor, they named the bridge after him. He built the bridge in 1915. He loved race horses, sold a mule to come here, helped build the circle in Corona, built 3 bridges, the Auburndale, the Hamner, and the River Road Bridge. Prior to 1915, it was known as the Eastvale Bridge. The reason they named it after him was he was the first one to actually make it a passable road from Corona all the way to San Bernardino. And that way, the up-and-coming community was Jurupa Valley and Eastvale. We all know where they went, but anyway, be that as it may, he was the one that made the passable road. He actually owned the land upon which the bridge sits. That's the 4th bridge that's there. He was very famous for the first trolley line in Corona, first modern water system, first electric line going from Corona to Arlington. He got a 4th grade education. He served as a supervisor from 1902 to 1922. First and foremost a rancher. He owned all the land from the River Road all the way up to Hamner. Rex Clark detested him because he wouldn't sell him that land. The reason that they replaced the bridge in 1915 with a metal standard bridge was because it was considered unsafe. That is now the 4th bridge. That bridge was built, and then 2 more were built. One in 38 got washed away. They built a new one that got washed away 2 years later. And then this one, which Berwin stood on top of, which is strange, hoping it would go in the last flood. This was a huge controversy. And so in my opinion, and then sadly, his daughter taught at the Norco school here. He lost 2 sons in the flu epidemic, and ironically, the 3rd time he ran for supervisor, he lost by 12 votes. Suddenly, 13 votes were discovered by the person who went against him, but in those days, it was over when it was over, so he won by 12 votes. And I just think that as we retire the bridge, we honor John Thomas J.T. Hamner, and we now call it, I would propose, the Mayor Berwin Hanna Bridge. And that's my motion. Can we have a vote count?
Councilmember Alleman. Councilmember Grunmeyer. Councilmember Hoffman. Mayor Pro Tem Newton. Mayor Bash.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous.
Congratulations, Berwin, you earned it. Do you want to say something? Come on up. It's your bridge. And by the way, Greg wasn't kidding. You got to sweep it.
I'll buy your broom first. Okay. This was the biggest shock I think I'd ever got. I mean, when Norva and Becky Buffington called me that night, and they'd been to Parks and Recs and told me about this, they delayed my bedtime by 2 hours because I couldn't get over the shock. Man, I couldn't go to sleep. I'm still in shock over it. I'm honored, overwhelmed, and I waited about 2 or 3 weeks before I told my kids, and they were delighted. And my wife would have been here tonight for all of this, but she has a cardiologist appointment tomorrow, and they told her to stay away from crowds for 2 weeks. So everything, but I'm honored with it, and like Norva said, those 7 women get on the bandwagon. You're not going to stop them. It's like a runaway train. So, I appreciate all the work they did and everybody that supported it. I've read all the names on the petitions and everything, but I really appreciate it. And I told my kids, I said, people run over me my whole life. Now they're going to continue on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Berwin.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. And you know what? Unlike past council and mayors, you're welcome back here.
Oh, yeah, well, consider myself a slug.
All right. Moving on to City Council communications, reports on regional boards and commissions. Just so you know, we've delayed the selection of that. That'll go into January. We're going to try to figure out ways that everybody can sort of divvy stuff up. I'll be getting back to you on that in January. Okay? So, oh, that's right, it's behind us. So, Mayor Pro Tem Newton, nothing to report. Who's next? Catherine.
Hello. So as this is my first meeting, I just wanted to use this opportunity to just introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me. So I have worked in the education and nonprofit sector, and I am a former Peace Corps volunteer. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Evolution and Ecology from UC Davis. I also have my Master's of Education in Cross-Cultural Teaching from National University. I hold a preliminary administrative services credential from UC Irvine. I have my teaching credential in biological sciences. I'm a science teacher by trade, and I also hold a bilingual teaching credential in Spanish. I also teach science in Spanish in the dual language immersion program. And then in getting prepared for City Council, I've been meeting with city staff. I haven't been at commission meetings, but I have been working hard to get caught up. So I have met with our Deputy City Manager, Director of Public Works, Finance Director, Economic Development Consultant, as well as the City Manager, and will continue to meet with other representatives and liaisons with the city as well.
Welcome. Thank you.
Nothing to report.
How many people did you feed last week? You, with your, on Fridays and stuff. You're still feeding quite a few people?
Yeah, the food pantry at the high school's been busy since March. We've fed over 2,800 people. I would like to give a shout out, though, to Norco Rotary. Has been a huge supporter. There's several businesses in town that have been supporting, and then individual residents as well. It's certainly been a community effort. Oh, and the River Church as well has been helping with the pantry, so it's definitely been a community project. And so we certainly appreciate the support, and we're still open Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m.
I just wanted to make sure when she says she hasn't been doing anything, she's been doing a lot. Ted. I think Ted.
Well, I've been covering for Berwin, his meetings. So I just belong to 3 committees. He didn't tell you he belongs to all these subcommittees that are with it. So it's a big load, but that's okay. Anyway, December 3rd is at the LAFCO. They're all online, so it's not that bad. And then this Riverside County Flood Control, I'm on the Supervisors District 2 on that. That's where new projects are introduced to us. They give us a recap of all the projects and then new projects. And Sam did a good job representing Norco and telling us about all the new projects he wanted us to spend money on. We meet again in February to vote on those. That goes up to the Board of Supervisors. And then I had the Riverside County Transportation Commission, the Northwest Committee. That is the area up here. Basically, that goes to the main board. Those are go on the consent calendar. That's what that subcommittee is all about. They work on the just like the part of the flood control for the Prado Dam was the approval of the crossing over the railroad tracks, things they were doing. There was also some other, that's how they do that. So those items actually go to the consent calendar. And then it goes voted on at the big meeting they have later on. Let's see. We had our, and I give you the minutes for the Western Community Energy Board. Really, and this is out to the residents, we really got to pay. I know the state says, they've been nice in telling people you don't have to pay your bills, but you got to eventually pay your bills. And we started this energy company, this project with the other 6 cities, and hopefully that nobody knew the pandemic was coming. No one knew that we'd have that tremendous heat surge and episode in the summer. And I tell you, we are at a serious point now. We're going to be looking over it. Andy helps me on that board, and we need to go to our state representatives and work with them on our board. And that's one of the directions the board is given to the Western Community Energy people is look. And this is not us as our CCA, the community aggregate program. It's all of them up and down the state. This thing has impact us quite hard. The state is relying on all these green energy projects to basically produce our energy. It's not going to be enough if we just saw what happened in the summer. So this is a big long-term project. We bought off on it. We've actually done very well, but to be honest with you, it's tough right now. And between all the delinquent bills that all the CCAs have, to include our other cities that are in there, we just need people to pay their electric bills, and because eventually it's going to come time to pay the piper. And again, we need help from the state representatives to help us on this thing too, because some of the things that the state has done up in the legislators does not help us CCAs, unless Andy wants to add anything to that. Yeah, and he'll admit that we need help at the state level. Again, the Western County Transportation Committee, that's TNOW, that's the bus program through RTA. That's all the cities on this end of the county dealing with the busings. Because of the pandemic, Route 4, we only have Route 3 right now through Norco. If it wasn't for the pandemic, hopefully we would have Route 4. That's the one that runs on the River Road side and goes all the way through to the Amazon business in Eastville. So we need to that needs to be up and coming and running. It's one of the projects they're doing. But they're also redoing some of the bus stops too, so that's good. Had the Western County Regional Wastewater Authority. They actually are doing very well this year financially. They're doing an asset management program. They recap. I don't know if Chad knows about this, so they added this to our agenda at the last minute. They're figuring out what assets we have, and then we're looking at it at a 5, 10, and 20-year plan to what needs to be done at that plant. We're almost to the point where that plant is up fully and operational. It needs some other things to do. The odor has been eliminated, our odor problem. At least we don't have as many complaints, but and then, it's amazing. I guess they found out that there's hard water out in this area because it just took out the boiler that was there. They didn't hear about that because Chad's looking at it. They didn't know about it. Yeah, we have to buy a new boiler over there. Yeah, so that's it's hard water. That's basically it. So let's see, and then you had attended yesterday online the Citizens Advisory Committee for the California Rehabilitation Center. We have a new warden. His name is Glenn Pratt, and hopefully we'll get to meet him soon and have him come here. Just so you know, their current population up there is 2,100 plus, and when you think about it, they were just almost under 4,000 before COVID. So now they're at 2,100. Staffing is still at about 1,198. But they've had a big hit with COVID over there. They're doing a very good job, but still the staff has been heavily impacted. I found one thing very interesting. Wish I could afford that. Pitzer College has a bachelor's degree program for it. And how many people they graduate? Did they say?
I think it was like 260 or something.
Yeah, but the many people that graduated from that with
from
bachelor's from Pitzer.
I don't remember. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's about a dozen people.
Yeah.
With a degree. Not bad at all. Anyway, that's your tax dollars at work. And they want to thank us. And the good thing is, their food program has been going on well. And she didn't send me the money, but last year, this current year, they've donated over $42,000 to the various programs that they support through the schools. So good for them. I mean, 42,000, I'm sorry. And one of their good thing for us is one of their favorite candidates is the Victor Bauer School. So that's good. And I get to go to the RTA and the Northwest Vector in the Mosquito meeting tomorrow. So it's been fun.
Thank you, Councilman. So our virtual Pearl Harbor went off very well. It's thousands of views. It turned out really well. The RCA, we're now under RCTC, and our first meeting will be in January. We've now sort of been folded into that organization. It's no longer, it'll be standalone within the administration capabilities. Everybody will stay the same, including the staff. I met with I guess they are going to do the bank robbery. It'll be a Netflix movie. I guess that's a done deal. Naval Surface Warfare Center, the Tech Bridge is very exciting, but I'm going to touch on the League of Cities. League of Cities, there are four primary goals for League of Cities is the homeless situation, catastrophic preparedness, police, and maintaining local control. I'm still very disappointed that the rural communities isn't really taking off that much, but I'm chairing the community services, which oversees a lot of the local control issues, but I'll be dealing mainly with homelessness. Housing is the other one. Housing, police reform, and the ones that I mentioned. It's a very interesting group. You've got staunch conservatives and you've got staunch liberals, and boy, that when they meet in the middle, it's very interesting. I intend as chair to just kind of be the referee and just kind of stay out of it and do what I can for Norco. We had a very good meeting, Andy, Brian, and myself, with the Riverside City College District. It looks like they're moving forward if they can find the funding for housing on that campus, which would assist us in our arena numbers. I thought it was a good meeting, interesting. A lot of the meetings I went to were end of the year. I'm pretty much dark for the rest of the year. I will be, as I said, in January, we'll be starting to divvy out these committees. And that's all I have. Moving on to council consent items. Is there anybody that wishes to pull something?
F.
F. Greg?
I did. 2D right now.
D? Ted? Anyone else?
And let's see. 2D, thank you.
Just D?
D. D is in David, yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve the rest?
Motion to approve the rest.
All right. Maybe have a council vote.
Councilmember Alleman, Councilmember Grunmeyer, Councilmember Hoffman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton, Mayor Bash.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Ted, since D comes before F, why don't we have you start?
Yeah, Brian, this is on yours and the pool bids and awards contract. And I was looking at the bids. I'm sorry. I was looking at the bids, and the bid from interior demolition. He's got, it's just very unusual, and I know how this bid program works, but he seemed very low for the abandoned cap utilities as compared to the other ones, and the remove, dispose of hazardous. And the reason I say that is the removal is, I don't know if that was asbestos material. Is that just the pool, or is that the pool building too?
That's just the material coming from the pool building. We already done the asbestos test. That came back negative. We do have some lead paint, which is part of the mitigation that will be done as well. But that was the only removals that were required based on the testing. So it is some lead paint. But other than that, the rest of this will be wherever he hauls materials, he must identify the location. He must file that with the county. We also are identified as part of the register for that.
Okay, because it's just,
And
it
even-
seems low compared to everybody else's. So, I mean, I know we always put a 10% contingency fee on here, but I didn't know there was, asbestos was negative, so.
Yeah, that was negative. It's just the lead paint. We had just a small section that tested positive. That is being mitigated and removed before they start the project.
Okay, because I had a project in Riverside that the asbestos killed most of my budget, so.
We're based on the age here, and I can't go back, but maybe at some point, many, many years ago, they had removed it, but we did not. In our testing, nothing came back positive in that. It was only for lead paint.
Okay. All right, thank you. Unless somebody else has anything, questions, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Alleman, Councilmember Grunmeyer, Councilmember Hoffman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton. Mayor Bash.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Greg, F?
Thank you, Mayor. What I like about Alma, she's already up and moving.
How are you looking at me?
Alma, actually my questions or statements are not with either the consultant or the price. This is just something that I wanted to address so that come April and May, we're not 6 months down the road and we haven't moved in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of taking this lead from Councilmember Grunmeyer at a few meetings ago when we talked about caretaker units, ADA units, and how we can encompass those into our RENA allotments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so if possible, how can we work that with this consultant? And I was just trying to think of a couple of items that I know there's a couple of ADUs like within a stone's throw of my residence.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember, gosh, way back when in planning days, the Smith resident, that really nice ranch on Valley View
Mm-hmm.
and 4th, we approved like a caretaker unit. Do we have some kind of file? What would trigger that with RENA numbers to say, okay, this address has a caretaker unit? Or like what we had recently with a past planning commissioner taking a caretaker's unit to an ADU. What will trigger that?
As far as converting it from a caretaker dwelling to an ADU, is that kind
No,
of
I mean, how can we account for that in our arena numbers allocations?
Well, as far as it being a caretaker dwelling, in order for it to be able to count as an ADU, a legit ADU, they would have to submit to convert it to a permanent ADU that would basically qualify under an ADU. So they would have to submit a building permit to be able to convert it to a permanent ADU, accessory dwelling unit. And then, in that case, then, we could look at it to see if it qualifies for, which ADUs do qualify to help meet our RENA numbers. So there is a process.
So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure what would trigger that, and then let's talk specifically about the planning commissioner, that it was an ADU and it was permitted. But what's going to flag that for this consultant to say, hey, we need to count this unit?
Well, again, it was approved as a caretaker dwelling. In order for it to count as an ADU, they'd have to submit a building permit to convert it. That's the only way it would count. My understanding, I don't know if John wants to chime in, but my understanding, that's the only way that it would count as an ADU.
And then just one other thing before John comments on it, is that I'm sure we've all seen different local realtors in town where they'll advertise like 2 homes on one lot, right, all over the place. I guess the same question, how do we track those? One is building permits, but also I'm sure there's a whole multitude of non-permitted structures that maybe we have to find a way where people are living in today also. And so
that's definitely something that would have to be analyzed to see how we can get to that point to where they are legit ADUs and they count towards our RENA numbers. Absolutely.
And it's just that maybe we have to look at that a little further, because I mean,
yeah.
And I'll welcome Councilmember Grunmeyer jumping in on this, is that I think that could drive our numbers another 20% lower, just in what we have existing around town.
And I believe that's something that will be analyzed, during our housing element update. Of course, that would be, and there's a section in there that talks about that. We'll be looking at that. So absolutely.
So I just wanted to kind of give you that heads up. I'm confident with your consultant.
Yeah.
And the price is fine. It's just that I think this is an important element.
No, I agree.
With that.
I agree. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Robin might, she'll remember this when we spoke to Senator Roth. He said that our caretaker units were something that was the whole point of his co-writing 1120, was the idea that people would live where they worked. And he's talked about his daughter having a caretaker unit. So I think in this, and also we've talked about the historic overlay, we would try to include, though, the problem is the moment you do that legally, your property taxes go up, because you now have another unit on your property. So now I'm hearing this.
Have a permit.
Well, they don't want to permit it, because the moment you permit it, all of a sudden your property tax goes up. So those are issues that we'll have to deal with. But I think you're right. But I was very encouraged by Senator Roth. So is there anything else? Anybody?
Yeah, Almond, this kind of piggybacks on what Councilman Newton is. When was the last housing element done?
The last,
I know it's old.
No, 2018, last cycle.
How long?
The last cycle was done in 2018.
That's 2018?
I'm sorry.
No.
It expires, yeah.
Yeah, but when did they do it? Every 10 years. So our last one was 2010. Okay.
We did one?
Yeah.
We did one.
We're current. We're compliant with state requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but in those 10 years, and who knows if they looked at, I think what Councilman Newton was saying is somewhere along the line, and I think this is what Councilman Grummer is referring to, there are a lot of buildings that have been converted. We see it all the time with barns and houses, and what was supposed to be a garage is now a living quarters. And we really need to be aggressive, but friendly aggressive in counting those, because I believe that if we do count those, it'll really impact our arena numbers, that we will find we actually have those here. And people are just afraid that we're going to find them, or they're going to get, as long as they meet fire life safety codes, and even if not, we give them an opportunity to bring those up to code over a period of time. We need the numbers, and I think it'll show the state that we have those, and I hope that that's impressed upon this firm. And I agree with Councilman Newton. I don't have any problem with this firm doing it, and because they're, you know, their credentials speak for themselves. But I think it's I guess it's when you walk around, if you slowly drive through or ride through the neighborhoods, you'll see buildings and houses that are living there. I can guarantee you they're not permitted. And I remember the numbers we had when I was on planning commission, and we used to look at them. You could see the extra wall going in and go, oh, that's a garage. Why is that extra wall going in? And why are you putting plumbing in there? And you know, because you saw them. Yeah. Well, you knew what they were going to do with them.
And we've started implementing with our code enforcement division. When we get a complaint for like a second unit, when we address a violation, we basically contact staff to see if they're able to qualify for, you know, conversion of an A.
Correct, but what I think what we need to go beyond just the permit process. Sometimes we just have to get out, and again, this is all going to be voluntary on the residents, but look towards walking the streets and knocking on doors without pushing code enforcement, because the minute they hear code enforcement, they're gonna back off.
I think the first step in that process is to adopt our ADU ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay. That has not been approved yet. We expect to bring that back to the city council as soon as we can start having public back into the city council, planning commission, city council.
Okay.
Once we do that, then we can embark on some sort of outreach to residents to encourage them to come back under an approved ADU so that we can document and fully get credit for those.
And that's exactly what we need to do. All right, thank you.
Greg, are you good? Do you want to make a motion?
One more question just to clarify that. But we do have something in place right now where we do have permitted ADUs on a property.
We have gotten several building permit applications for ADUs, and right now we're processing.
And that then will automatically trigger into this count, into the RENA allocation numbers.
My understanding is yes, and that will be confirmed with our housing element.
Okay, so so we don't have a misunderstanding. You will confirm then with the consultant on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes.
Okay.
The changes in the state law made it so that you, as a practical matter, have to.
Okay, I'm fine. Alma, thanks. I know you did a good job with the consultants.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to approve consultant agreement for the 2021-2029 housing element update.
Do I hear a second? Okay.
Councilmember Alleman, Councilmember Grunmeyer, Councilmember Hoffman, Mayor Pro Tem Newton, Mayor Bash.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Moving on to item 4, public comments. Do we have any public comments, Kelly?
No, I have not received any additional public comments.
Okay, I've opened and closed public comments. Moving on to city council discussion action items. We've already done A. We're moving on to B, fiscal year 2019-2020 year-end budget to annual report. Finance director. Hi, Lisette. How are you feeling?
Good, thank you.
Good. Good.
Doing better.
Good.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I will be going over the fiscal year 1920 year-end budget to actual report. So during the fiscal year, all our key operating funds of the city, including the general fund, water fund, sewer, all showed a positive financial performance with actual revenues exceeding total actual expenditures. While the actual general fund revenues were lower than the total amended budget amount, they exceeded the year's and worst case COVID-19 pandemic revised budget projection. Additionally, actual general fund expenditures were lower than the total amended budget. The Water and Sewer Fund also performed favorably in both revenues and expenses, resulting in positive additions to our reserves and working capital. As you see in the graph below, our general fund revenues were $21.4 million, expenditures were $20.7 million, with resulting in an increase of $758,000. Our water fund had revenues of $13.3 million, expenditures of $11.3 million, increasing our balance to about $2 million. Our sewer fund, I'm sorry, I need water. One of the side effects I guess I've been having is dehydration, so sorry about that.
Don't be sorry, take your time.
On our sewer fund, we had about $8 million in revenues, and expenditures have been $5.7 million. That ended with an increase of $2.5 million. Overall, the better than anticipated revenue performance and expenditure savings resulted in our net increase to our fund balance. Our general fund increased by $758,000. At the beginning of the fiscal year, on July 1st, we had $14.1 million in our fund balance, and at the end of the year, with our increase, it ended the fund balance at $14.9. When the 1920 budget was adopted back in June of 2019, a projected deficit of $798,000 was anticipated. After 7 months of activity, revenue and expenditures trends were reviewed and revised. On February 19th, staff presented the mid-year amendments to City Council, which basically reduced the budget to a balanced budget. It was just a deficit of $53. In March of 2020, Governor Gavin Newsom issued a stay-at-home order that resulted based on the coronavirus pandemic. It was anticipated that that event would result in a significantly negative impact on our local government revenues. Consequently, as part of the development of the budget for 2021, a worst-case scenario was used to provide the 1920 year-end projection. This revised general fund revenues downward to account for the potential negative impacts of the governor's stay-at-home order. This revised projection also indicated that the general fund could end the 1920 with a net deficit of $1.3 million. Fortunately, however, the scenario did not materialize, as the total actual revenues came in at only $298,000 below what the amended budget was. Combined with total expenditure savings of $1 million, 1920 ended with an addition of $758,000 to the fund balance. Bless you. On this chart, you see our actual to budget for our top revenues in categories, with sales tax being our majority of where we get our general fund revenues. As you could see, the amended budget, we're just sort of right under of what was our worst case scenario for that. And overall, in the rest of the categories, they sort of maintained between what was amended and projected as well, what came in. In addition, with our Measure R, while the statewide sales tax revenues declined by 16.3% during the last quarter of the fiscal year, which was impacted by the governor's stay-at-home order, Norco's transactions and use tax revenue, which is our Measure R, only declined by 2.4%. Fiscal year 1920 was a full year that the Measure R transactions and use was in place. The receipts and interest earned was $5.6 million and exceeded our amended budget amount. Total revenues exceeded total expenditures by about $3.7 million. Measure R's fund balance at the year end is 4.9 million. Excluding the amount of the 2.3 million that was carried over for projects, our available fund balance ended at 2.6 million. Our fund balance. Our fund balance is our city's rainy day fund. It provides a measure of the city's abilities to mitigate future risk associated with providing important services in times of economic uncertainty. City Council's policy requires that a minimum emergency fund balance that represents about 25% of our general fund expenditures be kept. For the fiscal year 2021, we estimated that our general fund expenditures about 20.6 million, resulting in about 5 million required to be maintained as our emergency fund balance. At the end of June 30th, 20, the estimated total fund balance is 14.9 million, which represents about 72% of our general fund expenditures. The city's healthy fund balance helps cushion against any future budget shortfalls. And once again, our fund balance for our general fund is at 14.9 million. In the next slide, you'll see that our fund balance has, over the last 10 years, has significantly increased from 2011, going from 2 million to 14.9 million of where it's at today. I think I went too far. The Special Asset Revenue Fund was established in 2008 to accumulate revenues generated from one-time asset sales and special revenue receipts. As of June 30th, this fund balance has a cash balance of 2.3 million and a receivable balance of 3.3 million. As for our water fund performance, total actual water fund revenues are 13.3 million, were more than our budgeted revenues of 3.1 million by 254,000, primarily due to charges for water services exceeding our budget. Total actual water fund expenses of 11.3 million were more than our budgeted expenses of 10.5 million. By 765,000, primarily due to our purchase water costs that exceeded budget by 821,000. Because our total revenues were more than our actual expenditures, our working capital increased. As of June 30th, the water fund had a working capital balance of 4.3 million. Our working capital includes about 2.8 million required for our operating reserve, 700,000 is required for our rate stabilization, and 800,000 to fund capital projects. Our sewer fund performance. Total actual sewer fund revenues of 8.2 million were more than budgeted revenues of 7.8 million by 459,000, primarily due to the charges for sewer services exceeding our budget. Our actual sewer fund expenses of 5.7 million were less than our budgeted expenses of 6.4 million by 728,000. These savings came from less than anticipated costs for sewer treatment, annual capacity, salaries, benefits, and claim settlements. Because our total actual revenues were more than our actual expenditures, our working capital also increased. At the end of the year, the sewer fund had a working capital balance of 4.6 million. So this working capital also includes 1.4 million that is used for our operating reserve. In addition, as far as our capital projects, they're used to account for our financial resources and uses pertaining to our acquisition and construction of our infrastructure and other assets such as streets, storm drains, public buildings, trails, park improvements, water and sewer infrastructure. Except for the water and sewer capital projects, which are funded with ongoing revenues that are derived from our user rates, other capital project categories have no dedicated ongoing revenue source, and therefore will rely only on funding from Measure R and infrequent impact fees. those will fund any new projects once the remaining cash balances are depleted. The table below next shows the current cash balances by each of our capital project funds that are currently available as of June 30th. In total, there's about $23.5 million of cash balance. Our landscape maintenance districts. The city administers 5 landscape maintenance districts that are known as LMDs. Revenues come from assessment fees that are paid by the property owners that live in each district, and those revenues are used to maintain the districts. During the fiscal year, actual revenues and expenditures were reasonably within the amount of the engineer's estimate in all the districts except for LMD 3. LMD 2 continues to reflect a negative fund balance. However, the deficit was significantly reduced during the year due to the reduction and application of the credit from our maintenance contractor. And with that, I would happy answer any questions you might have.
Robin, would you like to start? Ted?
Yeah, I do. Lizette on that, and I believe it came out of the special asset funds. That's where we offered that special program up. Is that correct, Annie? Is that where we
Seal
for
program?
the small businesses?
For the SEAL program, yes, that's
Yeah,
where we set it aside.
Is this included in that? Have we
Yes.
had? And so have we had?
Actually,
I think that was after, wasn't it?
it was after.
It was after the fiscal year. Okay. I was just wondering what kind of impact we've had on it. If it's
I believe there's been one loan issued.
that's it. Well, and I understand. That's why I was asking. If we've only had 1 or 2 applicants, maybe we can re-advertise that come January. Because there's a lot of people still hurting out there. Yeah, so. Okay, all right. But I think you did a very good job, very good. You're stingy with the checkbook, and it's good. It shows that. No, when we went into our budget, we went into the budget, when we approved it last year or the year before when we did this, we were all worried that we were just going to break even, just maybe have to dip in reserves. We didn't do it. And when COVID hit and the shutdown, I really thought we were going to be looking at about a $2 million deficit. And it's amazing to see the sales tax go up. Especially since I look at that and we lost the Paul Blanco car dealership at the same time that's in this. So you guys doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine?
Yes, I had a couple questions also for public knowledge. So the Measure R funds, so they're, because the sales tax revenue was more than it was anticipated, it looks like there will be $2.5 million more available to fund Measure R projects.
Yeah, so the projects that didn't get completed last fiscal year carry over, so that reduces our fund balance, and whatever's remaining is available.
Right, so there are more funds available than what has already been allocated to projects.
Yes.
So I know our residents will be happy about that because a lot of projects that have been funded from that are streets or trails. And so staff will identify those possible projects again and take those to the Measure R Commission for approval and then come back to the City Council. And just in terms of the Special Asset Revenue Fund, there's about $2.3 million in that fund. What has that fund been used for? My understanding is that it hasn't been used, so there's funds in there for any special projects that the city would like to do. City Council would want to approve if things came up.
Yeah, could I defer that to Andy?
Sorry, 150,000 has been earmarked
For
to
the seal.
fund the micro business loan program. Other than that, there is no additional encumbrances on the $2.3 million. That, of course, means any project that the city council likes to do, that is available funds. However, the resolution that established that fund requires a supermajority vote of the city council in order for any monies to be drawn from that fund.
Perfect.
One thing I do want to mention too is these monies that are in that fund were a one-time source of revenues, and therefore in trying to determine whether the city council should be starting a new programs to be funded out of that, that is something to be kept in mind. These are not revenues that are recurring revenues. They are one-time revenues, and the recommendation would be if you're going to do something, it will be something that is a one-time expenditure.
Perfect, thank you. And I would just want to say thank you to the city staff, because we were projected to be, at a huge loss, and we're putting more money into that rainy day fund, into the general fund. So I want to thank Lisette and Andy and everyone else on your staff who's worked so hard on that for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg?
As always, good report, Lisette.
Thank you.
Couple of questions. On page 3, item 3, other taxes, transit occupancy tax, or TOT. How much time is remaining on the Marriott sharing agreement that we have? I know we're getting to the end.
On
but
the rebate, we're almost to the cap, because it does have a cap of about $1 million or so. I think
wasn't
it's
it like 5
$1,080,000.
years or something? Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So a year from now, hopefully we see some better improvement
Yeah.
on that. Okay, I was just curious. I knew we were getting near the end of it. On page 4, item 4, franchise fees. Refuse franchise fee was $68,139, better than budget. What is our budget for refuse franchise fees?
I could get the details. Let's see if I
Okay.
have it in the.
Well, let me. Okay. Well, could we do this? Could you give council, like last year's, where we were on refuse
Okay.
franchise fees, and then where we are today, and then what we're projected through the rest of the year
Will do.
on that? Okay. Because I'm trying to figure out how are we knowing that we're 68,000 to the good on this? So, couple of these I was going to skip. So we get into water fund and sewer fund, and I'm just curious on our debt service related payments, both on water and sewer. Why is our actual so much greater than our amended?
On that is when we came at mid-year for the allocation between the refunding of our water and sewer bond. When we had done that, we had used a blended rate for the bond. That was it used to be about 30 to 60% between water and sewer on the 2009 bond.
Right.
And so with the new one, because of the new money, we couldn't use that rate. So when mid-year came, we used that blended rate. And then as we were doing our year-end entries for the auditors on our bonds, because of that new money, we had to specifically use a percentage just for that 14 million of new money to water and keep the 2009 percentage to water and sewer. So that changed the numbers. And so I'm hoping not to do that, to catch that before our budget. So that was a mistake on my end on just how I estimated the the percentage between water and sewer.
Because we were to the good with the reoccurring bonds when interest rates were driving downward.
Yeah.
And then, so this is more blended, because those numbers threw me on debt service.
Yes, and it was, when I had blended them, just saying, okay, so the new water and the new sewer, it's going to be about 59% to water, and so, but because of the way it was set up, it's like, no, we have to, to allocate it properly and not, allocate less or more, to actually put the right amount into sewer and the right amount into water because of that new money.
Okay.
Acted that in addition to the change in the allocation formula, as you recall, when we refunded the bonds, we did issue additional $14 million for new water projects.
Right.
So
right.
that the debt service related to that new money was not part of this in the budget. Okay. So
Okay, but it is in this.
It is in this.
Right.
So that's
Okay.
that's part of that equation.
Thanks, Lisette. Good report.
I have a couple questions. One, so the water fund, the reason we're under is not because of rates, it's because people are not paying the bill. Is that a problem right now, or?
Currently, as of when we did I haven't done November's analysis of our receivables, but in October, I think we are seeing an increase in over our delinquency, so that's over 60 days. It's about, I think it went up to about 8% of our total.
Which is about reflected here. And then do we have the same problem in the sewer?
Just want to make sure that the numbers are understood. The water fund is not under. So actual revenues that came in based on what you saw here for the water fund was more than the actual expenditures.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So I don't know if you're talking about the purchased water, which is where.
Well, the purchase water expense, I was just asking about the water fund to find out what the delinquency rate was.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Yeah, that's separate.
Yeah,
And what
yeah.
you said is correct.
Yeah.
And that's an issue we're going to be dealing with for a long time.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, we can't shut them out.
Disconnect water service.
And then the sewer fund, are we seeing any delinquency in that, or is that tied?
It's tied.
Yeah, okay. Fund balance, Andy, $14,871,000. It's like, I can't even believe it. I can remember when you look at that little chart and it'd move up every year, and I'd go, wow, we moved up a little bit. Oh my God, it went up a little more. Oh my God, we did it again, and we did it again. So it's pretty amazing. Just for clarification for the public, the special asset fund, can you explain the difference between the 2.3 million cash and the 3.3 million? What's the difference? What does that mean?
The receivable?
Yeah.
That is the receivable I believe we have with City of Corona. That goes into there.
What I meant is we have $2.3 million cash on hand, and the 3.3 million is what's coming in. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to make sure people understood that. Measure R, just to sort of key off of Catherine, Measure R, we have the ability as council people that we can recommend projects to staff. So if there's something that we want to do, we can always just come to staff, and I'm just sort of basing that off the question. Do we have any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I do. On just
Okay. Yeah, please.
And I'm looking here on page 4, the interest and lease income. And it shows that actually we had 128,000 more than projected. Now, that, and you've got Silver Lakes on there. Wouldn't that be down, Andy, because of the lease payment and the income on that? Or is that? Okay, all right. So that's why you it's the amended budget, so we looked at that. Okay, just clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is a receive and file, so unless there's no more questions, thank you very much, Lisette. I think we're going to see you in a second, right? Moving on to C, approval of fiscal year 2021-22 recognized obligation payment schedule, including...
You need a motion to receive and file.
Sorry, you need a motion to receive and file. I make a motion to receive and file. Do I hear a second?
Councilmember Alleman, Councilmember Grunmeyer, Councilmember Hoffman, Mayor Pro Tem Newton, Mayor Bash.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Now moving on. The approval of fiscal year 2021 recognized obligation payment schedule, including administrative budget. Finance Director.
So this is our successor agency to our Norco's Community Redevelopment Agency. It was formed to administer the enforceable obligations to unwind the former affairs of the Norco Community Agency. They were all subject to review and approval by a 7-member oversight. Until June of 2018, each successor agency had its local board that served this purpose. However, as of July 1st of 2018, all those boards have been consolidated into oversight boards as part of the streamlining and winding down the redevelopment affairs. So in according with that Dissolution Act, the successor agency has prepared this ROP schedule for 21-22, which includes enforceable obligations for the upcoming year, July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2022. We're presenting to the County Oversight Board that they consider approval at its January 7th meeting. And following the approval of the Oversight Board, the agency will submit the ROPS 21-22 schedule to the CAO, the CAC, the SCO, and Department of Finance by February 1st of 2021. The ROPS schedule provides a list of our eligible obligations to be paid by the agency for funding of our 21-22 fiscal year. These obligations are basically to pay the debt service payments required on the bonds issued by the RDA on behalf of the Corona Norco Unified School District of $6 million, and the administrative cost allowance that is paid to the agency of $250,000. In addition, the supplemental education revenue loan repayment to the housing fund that includes its $400,000 for this year. So the total of obligations requested to be paid from the redevelopment property tax fund for the fiscal year are $6.7 million. In the past, the agency had requested reimbursement of the RDA share of the unfunded pension and post-retirement liabilities. That request was originally denied by the DOF, but the agency had pursued litigation. However, the agency litigation was unsuccessful, and we're no longer requesting those amounts on the ROPS for payment. And as far as for the supplemental education revenue augmentation fund, the current balance at the end of the fiscal year is $820,000 is left over from the original, and this year would be making a payment of $400,000, and that has been included in the schedule as well. And with that, we just request council members to adopt the resolution to approve the ROP schedule for payment for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Catherine, do you have a question? Greg? Robin?
No question.
Ted?
So we're going to pay them for our ROPS for 6.7, just about for the year?
That's what we're requesting, is the 6.7.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And then, I appreciate it because you got on your charts and your graphs here, total outstanding obligations. So we're still at 92 million. Is that where our obligation is on this, on the redevelopment fund?
Yes.
That's quite a, I mean, we paid off quite a bit already, huh? Over the last, what, 5 years? Because it was about 150. This is good. This is good. So proud of you. Correct. But I mean, that is buying it down. So that's good. I mean, we broke the 100 million mark. So that's good. I mean, that's what I look at it. No, I know. It comes out of the property tax. And no, I knew where it's coming from. I'm glad we broke the 100 million mark, though.
It would be nice if we didn't have that debt, and wouldn't we get a bigger portion of property tax? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna, what are we projecting, 30 or something like 30, 35, for that's all paid off? Somewhere around there, you know.
So.
That's good.
Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
The motion to approve?
Do I hear a second?
Councilmember Alleman? Councilmember Grunmeyer? Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton? Mayor Bash?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Moving on to 6A, approval of resolution 2020-75 authorizing amendments to fiscal years 2021-2025 capital improvement program budget to include various storm drain projects. Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy City Engineer and myself are going to work on this together. I'm just going to introduce the item, and then Sam's going to review some of the projects and answer any questions you have. But basically, this is seeking council's approval to add 5 additional storm drain projects that we worked out with Riverside Flood Control District to fully fund these projects. 2 of the projects were planned to be done by flood control as part of the South Norco Channel project, but those ultimately they could not negotiate a change order with the contractor, so they are reverting back to us. We actually did the designs. And then, since we already have those designed, we'll be able to go out those projects fairly quickly. But Sam's here to review each of those projects real quick and can answer any questions you have on them.
Robin, questions? Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted questions.
Any questions on these projects? We have 5 of them. The first one would be Norco N1G. This one is a storm drain conduit in California Avenue, just north of 7th Street. This storm drain came about due to the fact that we, about 2 years ago, built another storm drain in 7th Street, or California Avenue, going from about 8th Street to the south, and created a lot of issues. They're wondering why we weren't extending the tube further, which we basically pointed out to the fact that right about where the gap is between those 2 magenta lines is a ridge line. So water to the north of that actually goes to the northwest, while the remainder to the south goes to the southwest. We have to be cognizant of directing water into storm drains because the downstream facilities might not have the correct magnitude of conveyance. So as part of this project, and we're all aware of California Avenue, there's a storm drain or some actually street improvements included with this, because as you're aware, the east side of the street is higher than the west side of the street, and part of storm drain interception is the installation of curb and gutter. So that would go through on the N1G storm drain. Going up next is the N1C storm drain. This is basically the N1C extension. This is the extension of a storm drain we put in about 2 years ago in Pedley Avenue to go basically from approximately the Green Tree area south about to maybe 100 foot north of the 6th Street. Previously, this line is actually in Riverside County Flood Control's designated NBP storm drain that they put together years and years ago. And one of the aspects of the reason why we actually didn't extend it at the time was that area is extremely flat in that area. So what that means is that when you build those types of storm drains, you usually want to have some type of slope to the street. In that area, it's so shallow that you end up having a series of low points. You get lots of puddles in the road. So realistically, you'd have to put catch basins every 25, 30 feet, which is very expensive. So as part of the storm drain project, we actually are proposing street improvements, which will basically create what we call in the engineering world a sawtooth effect. So a series of high and low points so we can minimize the number of basins we have, get the water out there so the residents are getting destroyed. The next storm drain project we have is SA3. This is a storm drain in First Street, in Hillside Avenue, just north of First Street. And this is actually going to coincide with a street improvement project we're doing. If you've been down that road, it's pretty hammered. The asphalt's in poor condition, and what we're trying to do is get the curb and gutter in conjunction with the storm drain, pick that up, get these residents dry. Next one is the N4 storm drain. I was well aware 4th Street gets pretty tore up. I mean, it's a river. And it gets so bad that the curb capacity doesn't exist, and the water actually weirs to the south through Sharon Smith's property. She's come in many times and complained about it. We understand the ramifications. So in this one, we're basically extending from the North Norco Channel due east, and then at the same time coming due north and due south on Valley View Avenue, one of which is to solve the issue that the Circle D Ranch is having, where they're having great amounts of ponding water and they can't get rid of it. The engineer who prepared the debris basin in there didn't work. It just ponds water, and it's a huge issue with the residents around there. On the other side, on Valley View, there's actually a big low point there that, as part of another storm drain project we want to do, we couldn't get to that point coming from the south through an already approved storm drain project called N5. So this is kind of trying to mitigate those two areas, inclusive with picking up water on 4th Street to dry it up. So the two storm drains Chad just spoke about that were previously going to be proposed by Riverside County Flood Control as part of their South Norco Channel project are the S6 storm drain project, which is in Temescal Avenue, just in front of the high school, and the other one is the S5A, which is on the Norco Intermediate. Currently, the S6 storm drain is an existing conduit. It's arch pipe. It's probably been there since, dirt. And it's compromised. It's in bad condition. It does not have the capacity. So we're basically replacing that with a larger conduit. We've already got the easements for this. There's one last aspect of that with a utility conflict, but that's being addressed concurrently right now. And finally, the S5 project is the extension to connect an existing City of Norco storm drain, which exists between 942 Kingman and 950 Kingman. Basically, from that point on, due south to connect to the existing South Norco channel that they just built. And just to let you know, we designed this. I was actually on the other side of the table. I wasn't working for the City of Norco at the time, but we designed that 6-7 years ago to make this happen. So, any questions?
It's when you were with Armstrong and Brooks, right? Okay, so then you should know that plan pretty well.
My stamp's on it.
Okay. So, not so much a question, Sam and Chad, but a statement that I'd like us on all these projects where we have street improvements, curb and gutter, that we take from the lessons learned on 3rd Street between Temescal and Hillside, that we back check these plans and that we coordinate with flood control so that when we have storm drain structures, we just don't see little 2-foot asphalt curbs. When we tear up 2/3 of a street, that we allow funding to repave the street, and just take heed to some of the lessons and some of the ramifications that we saw here recently with that project off of 3rd Street. That's kind of my only comment.
Catherine?
Other than that, you guys are doing absolutely great with all of these. Appreciate it.
Catherine?
Yes, my question is just regarding the financial impact. Just looking at, do we have sufficient funding to cover the cost of the additional street repairs? And if so, which funds is that going to be coming from?
The street repair portions of any of these projects we consider pretty minor, so we have the funding to do it. They're not large sections of the roadway, so we do have the funding to cover that. Unfortunately, flood control does not traditionally cover road resurfacing except for the trench, and they also don't and historically have not been funding any of the curb and gutter that really is really mandatory in our view to make this water flow to the right catch basins. We have been having recent discussions with them to see if we can get them off that position, and recognizing based off of other projects, pointing out that water's not getting from A to B because you're not putting in the curb and gutter. That's just, they've traditionally not want to do it because they're trying not to do too many public improvements. But I think we've gotten them to recognize that some of these projects just don't work unless you fund that, and it doesn't make sense. So hopefully we'll even reduce our obligation. And normally when we come back with these projects, we'll try to identify what the obligation is for flood control versus us when you actually approve the project for award of contract.
Robin?
I just wanted to tell both of you thank you for pushing these things along in the last few years, just the improvements when we have storm events in town. You know, when I first started on council, there were several areas in town that we were, as a council member, I was going around to see for myself what the impacts were, and you've lessened drives during storm events for sure. So that's been appreciated, and I'm looking forward to the improvement in front of Norco High School because it's been a safety issue for our students and our parents during drop-off. So thank you for all the hard work, and it's definitely noticed and greatly appreciated.
Ted?
Well, I'm going to reiterate what Councilman Newton said, and I'm going to add, excuse me, when we do these improvements, especially through town, and I know that, you know, sitting on the flood control district, and I know why they don't want to spend the money. Basically, there's a lot of projects. It's just not us, and we have been, the city here and the county have been worked very well together and putting these projects together, but there are other areas of the county that the district number 2 has to handle to include everything from north Lake Elsinore all the way down part of Corona and Eastville. So they see all these projects, and that's why they don't want to really get into the street improvement business for them. These are shared projects. And the way I look at it is when we do these, instead of just having the issues we had on 3rd Street, is that we look at, we know we don't want to tear out the road again, but once those flood control channels are in and you don't have any other infrastructure improvements being done immediately, we need to just do the whole road and put that in our capital improvement fund. And that includes also, if we have to get curb and gutter, we put curb and gutter, if we have to. And then we also have to look at the trail fencing along there and the trail improvements. Because if we're going to do the street, let's just do the street. And that's what I would say. And, you know, we're going to have to look at that and spend our money that way as we go through. And that way the people aren't going to go, why aren't you doing my street? You did this. Why are we tearing it up 2 or 3 times? And that's what I said. But these are good projects. And I remember when they put that storm channel in, is when in 1967 in high school when I was there. Yeah, it was a culvert, like a metal culvert that went underneath Temescal, and it went by the German's house that we're sitting right there next to where Lou and Myrna live now. So it's been there for a long time, Sam. So yeah, all right. So thank you.
So any other questions, comments? Do I hear a motion?
Sorry, this is a public hearing.
Oh,
Can you open it?
do you have any public comments? Sorry.
No.
Opening and closing. Thank you. Do we have, I'm going to make a motion approval of resolution 2020-75 authorizing various amendments to fiscal years 2020-25 capital improvements program budget. Do I hear a second?
Councilmember Alleman? Councilmember Grunmeyer? Councilmember Hoffman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton? Mayor Bash?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
So let's move around. Let's start with Kelly. Anything?
Nothing to report.
Chad? Brian? Thank you. Alma? Lisette? Sam? He's good. Chief? He's good. Matt? Chief? Is Robin going? She wants to bust somebody. John.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
as I say, nothing to add other than since we won't see one another until January the 20th, have a wonderful holiday.
Andy.
Yeah, just one quick reminder that resources manager Mona Packanon, her last day with the city is actually tomorrow. If you happen to stop by City Hall, stop by her office and say goodbye to her.
Locked up. I came. How do we get in?
I think you have a card.
My card doesn't work.
Brian, fix his card, please.
You gotta fix my card. Doesn't work.
That's Bay Chris.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Andy?
Yeah, just also keep our city clerk, Dana Roa, in your thoughts and prayers. And
Do you know her father's name?
you know, I haven't asked. I barely had a few conversations with her today, but I didn't want to go into a whole lot of details, but I'll get that information.
We'll close tonight's meeting in his honor. Ted.
Thank you, Mayor. In reference to the holiday schedule, I forgot to mention there won't the buses will operate on New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve, but they will not operate on New Year's Day. And so, just so that the RTA buses for people. And the article, and I threw this at you. I just interested in reading. This came from Vector Control and mosquitoes. It was interesting now, this murine typhus mirrored the COVID-19 symptoms. And, you know, so you never know what, all these things. And then you have a third world country and think of typhus coming down and hitting us. So, just something to think about. Thank you.
Robin. Catherine. Greg.
Just to wish all the staff and all of you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Damn, it's got to be better next year. So,
Yes.
appreciate
So
all
we will
your
be
hard
going to
work.
closed session after this. Again, Lacey, Kelly, thank you for stepping in for Dana. What we will do is we will close tonight's meeting in honor of her father. We'll take a moment of silence. Meeting is adjourned. Well, how do I adjourn this meeting, but then I have to reopen? Yeah, I knew what I was doing.